6 armed Palestinian prisoners spent 9 months digging a 25-meter tunnel with spoons, escaping directly beneath a guard tower and breaking through Israel's highest level of prison security. The prison where this happened, Gilboa, had always been called Israel's Iron Fortress, the most heavily secured, maximum security prison in the country. A later official investigation confirmed the escape exposed 9 separate fatal procedural failures. Construction on Gilboa prison began in 2004 and cost around $30 million. It was built specifically to hold high-risk Palestinian prisoners under Israel's security laws. The entire facility used a modern, sealed design, with cell blocks arranged in staggered layouts, separated by reinforced steel doors. A double perimeter fence surrounded the compound, with motion sensors and ground vibration detectors installed throughout, specifically designed to catch anyone trying to dig a tunnel. Armed watchtowers dotted the walls at regular intervals, backed by full CCTV coverage, feeding live footage to a central control room around the clock. Based on the design and equipment alone, this was supposed to be a completely impenetrable concrete fortress. But rush construction left this top-tier prison with a fatal structural flaw. Instead of pouring a single continuous foundation slab, the builders used concrete pillars to raise the entire cell block 1.5 meters above bedrock. That left a sealed, hollow gap under the floor of every single cell. The gap was meant to make it easier to service the plumbing and ventilation systems, but it accidentally left a hidden space beneath every high-security cell, large enough for a person to move around in, roughly the size of 2 swimming pools. In 2014, prisoners in a different wing of Gilboa had already discovered this structural flaw. They broke through their bathroom floor, got into the space underneath, and were caught by police just as they started digging a tunnel out. Prison management immediately ordered concrete poured into every gap to seal them all off, but the project ran out of budget halfway through. Only some sections got reinforced, and large areas of the core structure were left open and untouched. This time, the escape team just happened to be locked up in Cell 5 of Block 2, one of the sections that was never sealed. On top of that, the prison's core architectural blueprints were sitting out in the open the entire time. The construction company that originally built the prison had uploaded the complete design plans, including cell layouts and cross-sections of the underground gaps, to their public website to showcase their work. Anyone with an internet connection could look them up. Fully aware of this structural weakness, the 6-man team began carefully planning their escape. The mastermind behind it, Mahmoud, was a senior figure in the military wing of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, imprisoned since 1996. The second man on the team, Zakaria, was arrested and imprisoned in 2019. The third, Mahmoud's cousin, Mahmoud, was imprisoned in 2002. The fourth, 49-year-old Yaqub, was convicted and imprisoned in 2003 for participating in an attack targeting Israeli civilians. The fifth, Iham, was sentenced to life in 2006 for kidnapping and murdering an Israeli teenager. The sixth, Munadel, wasn't serving a life sentence but had been held for years under administrative detention without trial, with no realistic chance of release anytime soon. On the 11th of December 2020, the digging began. They picked their starting point at a corner tile beneath the sink in Cell 5's bathroom, a spot conveniently blocked from direct guard sightlines by the wall. Using a metal spoon from the cafeteria as their main tool, they pried up the loose tile. Underneath was 15 centimeters of concrete reinforced with wire mesh, and below that, the open underground gap they needed to reach. To carve out an escape route, the 6 men had to chip, scrape, and pry apart nearly half a cubic meter of reinforced concrete, all by hand. Their only tools were whatever they could scrounge up: a cafeteria spatula, metal hangers, and scraps of discarded cleaning hardware. The team set up a strict rotation. 2 men dug, 2 kept watch at fixed posts, 1 guarded the cell door, and 1 monitored the hallway. To mask the noise of chipping through concrete, they timed their work to the loudest parts of the day: morning showers, meal times, using clattering trays and general noise to cover the sound of digging. When they hit rebar too tough to break by hand, and digging through it manually was too slow and too loud, they made their own corrosive solution using everyday supplies, mixing cola, white vinegar, and prison-issued rust remover, and repeatedly soaking the exposed metal to weaken it chemically. Once the rebar had corroded and turned brittle, they'd snap it off by hand. A single short section of rebar often took 3 straight nights of soaking and reworking before it finally gave way. The digging itself was exhausting, tedious, and demanded enormous patience. But hiding the debris turned out to be an even bigger problem than the digging. 9 months of continuous work produced huge amounts of concrete dust, dirt, and rebar fragments. With 6 men crammed into a tiny cell and no extra storage space, they developed 3 separate methods to get rid of it. First, dissolving it through the plumbing. They'd grind large chunks down into fine sand, mix it with water, and flush it down the toilet in small batches. The buildup repeatedly clogged the pipes, but maintenance staff treated it as a routine equipment issue, clearing the blockage without ever investigating what was actually causing it. Second, packing it into wall gaps. The cell's dividing walls weren't solid and had thin ventilation gaps inside. They'd carefully chip a small opening in the wall with a spoon, pack the fine debris inside, and seal it back up with a paste made from soap, toothpaste, and dust. Third, storing it in place. They took apart spare prison uniforms to make makeshift bags, filled them with larger chunks of dirt and rock, and stacked them in the hollow space beneath the floor. By spring 2021, they'd broken through the cell floor and moved into Phase 2, digging a horizontal tunnel. Hugging the prison's outer soil and concrete layers, they dug inward, carving out a 25-meter horizontal tunnel. Conditions were brutal. They worked entirely by the light of smuggled miniature bulbs, in a cramped, stifling space, crawling the entire time with a constant risk of the tunnel collapsing and burying them alive. For safety, they dismantled their bed frames to build wooden support structures, bracing the tunnel every meter, and managed to advance about 1 to 2 meters a week on average. Over those 9 months of secret digging, 2 close calls nearly blew the whole operation. The first happened during a routine cell inspection in spring 2021. A guard cleaning the bathroom noticed a loose tile under the sink and bent down to press on it, checking it out. Inside the cell, all 6 men held perfectly still, bracing for discovery. But the guard simply jotted down a note about the anomaly and walked away without investigating further. The second close call was even more dangerous. The cell's toilet became severely clogged, and a repair worker came in, escorted by a guard, to fix it. While clearing the drain, the worker clearly saw fine sand and gravel in the pipe that had no business being there. He stared at it for a long moment, said nothing, and in the end, neither he nor the guard investigated further or logged anything unusual. They finished up quickly and left, and the follow-up inspection they'd promised never happened. By late summer 2021, the tunnel was fully complete. After surviving 2 close calls in a row, the 6 men knew any further delay could ruin everything, so they moved their planned escape date up from September 7 to September 6. That date happened to fall on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, when the prison switched to holiday staffing, cutting back on guards, slowing down shift rotations, and loosening security, making it the weakest window in the entire year. On September 5, all 6 men finished their final preparations. Once the evening lockdown ended, they waited for the hallway to go completely silent. Around 1 a.m. on September 6, the mastermind Mahmoud was the first to lift the tile and slip into the underground gap, with the other 5 following one by one. Right on schedule, Mahmoud's head finally emerged from the tunnel exit directly beneath the watchtower. And that's exactly when the biggest stroke of luck in the whole operation hit. The watchtower directly above the tunnel was already unmanned due to holiday staffing shortages. The one guard responsible for monitoring that area was fast asleep the entire time. He later testified that he'd vaguely heard something, gotten up to check, found nothing unusual, and gone right back to sleep. A guard dog's barking triggered the automated security system, which turned a camera toward the sound and started recording, streaming live footage straight to the central control room. But the guard on duty was too busy watching a TV show to notice the feed. Meanwhile, the prison's cell phone signal jammer, meant to cut off any contact between prisoners and the outside world, was switched off for the holiday, and nobody had turned it back on. Multiple layers of security failed all at once, clearing the way for all 6 men to get out. But then a new problem hit. The getaway vehicle, coordinated in advance to meet them outside, never showed up at the agreed spot. With no time to hesitate, the 6 men decided on the spot to head east on foot toward the village of Yabad in the West Bank. At 1:47 a.m., a taxi driver on Route 71 spotted 6 men sprinting across an open field and called the police immediately. When patrol officers arrived at the scene, they found the exposed tunnel opening and called Gilboa Prison to confirm whether any prisoners were missing. Absurdly, the prison's duty officer only did a visual check of the cells, saw blanket and pillow shapes arranged to look like sleeping bodies, and casually reported that no prisoners were missing. It wasn't until 3 a.m., after a second head count, that the prison vaguely reported 3 prisoners possibly missing. It took until 4 a.m., nearly 3 hours after the escape, for the prison to finally confirm that all 6 of its highest security, life-sentence prisoners had vanished. Thousands of Israeli police, border guards, military soldiers, and Shin Bet agents mobilized in response. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging scanned the countryside, drones checked for suspicious heat signatures, and every major road in the north was locked down with checkpoints. The story triggered a massive public backlash almost immediately, with Israeli media zeroing in on the prison's security failures and calling it a national security scandal. The 6 men fled on foot through the night and reached an Arab community in the Lower Galilee, about 7 kilometers from the prison, by dawn. But by then, they realized Israel's crackdown was moving far faster than they'd expected, and their planned route to the West Bank was already completely blocked off. Cornered, the 6 men split into 3 pairs and scattered to hide separately. Over the next 4 days on the run, they survived by eating wild pomegranates, figs, and prickly pear fruit, occasionally scavenging food from trash bins in nearby towns. The manhunt moved fast. On the night of September 10th, Mahmoud and Yaqub, identified by local residents, were caught outside a restaurant in Nazareth. On September 11, Zakaria and Mamid were found and arrested while hiding under the chassis of a semi-truck. Only Iham and Munadel managed to break through the blockade and make it into the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank, where they were sheltered by local armed groups. On September 19, Israeli forces raided the Jenin camp, and after a brief exchange of gunfire with the fighters sheltering them, the last 2 fugitives surrendered. That brought the 13-day, prison-wide manhunt to a close, with all 6 escapees back in custody. Afterward, Israel's parliament formed a special investigative committee, which produced a report over 100 pages long, exposing systemic prison-wide failures. First was the unfinished project to seal the underground gaps, along with the fully public core architectural blueprints. Second was the improper concentration of high-risk prisoners together, along with frequent false alarms, deliberately disabled vibration sensors, a sleeping guard in the watchtower, an unstaffed lookout post, negligent control room staff, a signal jammer switched off for the holiday, and a head count system easily fooled by blankets shaped like sleeping bodies. These 9 critical failures stacked on top of each other, and together they led to this shocking prison break.